of December. I'll call it to order and we'll get underway. Quickly, I've got some apologies which I will move. I've got full absence from Mayor Paula, Councillor Donovan, Councillor Mukul, Councillor Taylor, and partial attendance, although hopefully, what time are you heading off? Okay, so at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the quorum is 5 members of this particular committee, and so when you depart, we can't let anybody else depart, otherwise we'll collapse. Right, but we'll get underway. So I'll move those, seconded by Councillor Louise. All those in favour say aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
The agenda is as per the run sheet. Colleagues, any declarations of interest? No declarations declared. Moving now on to item 4, confirmation of the Regulatory and Hearings Committee open minutes of the 21st of March 2024. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Anna. Any corrections to the minutes? Any corrections to the minutes? None. I'll put all those in favour say aye. Those against? And sorry, go ahead.
The motion was carried unanimously.
And my good friend has reminded me that I needed to, James, thank you, that I needed to move the confirmation of the agenda. I'll move, seconded by Councillor Maxine. All those in favour say aye. Those against, the ayes have it. Thank you, everybody, for that bit of housekeeping. We've just got to get that underway. So, item 5, which is the Animal and Dog Control Review Program hearings. We're here to hear public submissions. We've got a list of submitters. Today, our role is simply to hear the submissions. We won't be making a decision. We will have some chance at the end to voice additional information that we may want staff to consider and add to bring back to us at a later date to make those decisions. So with that outline, does staff want to introduce the item, or should we just go directly into...
I think I'll repeat what you've said.
Okay, excellent. So why don't we just go straight into submissions? And I've got Max Verrun is the first submitter. Sir, welcome. Come up to the seat. It's 5 minutes. So sorry? Excellent. So you have 5 minutes. Obviously, if you've provided any written submission that has already been circulated, we're in your hands. If you go less than 5 minutes, it enables questions from elected members. Max, we're in your hands. Go ahead.
Okay, well, it won't be that long. Anyway, thanks for giving me the opportunity to share my views on the animal nuisance bylaws. I've been a dog owner for over 50 years and have been the victim of 2 dog attacks, one directed at me and one directed at my dog. Dogs need suitable training, a stable life and dedicated owners who will train them to be a social animal. I agree with the amendments put forward for discussion to enhance the animal nuisance bylaws. My submission is based generally on the inclusion of Rakautāki Park being included as a dog-friendly area. Having lived in Baverstock Road for over 20 years, I have witnessed the high density housing that's been constructed at the top end of Baverstock Road. In the last 10 years, there have been over 60 new houses constructed, meaning more families, more children, more dogs, more cats. While I'm happy to see Rakautāki Park developed as a dog-friendly park, I would rather it be combined for the use for local children. The nearest children's playgrounds are Dominion Road and Ayrshire Drive. The rezoning of Baverstock Road into a high density area has meant small sections, no areas for children to play, and they generally play on the road. My thoughts are that Waiwhakariki Park should be utilised as a dog-friendly park in the interim for those living in the area, as there are no flightless birds in the park and dogs pose no risk. The nearest dog-friendly park for our area is a car ride away, Forest Lake Road, Forest Lake Park, Tills Landing, Taitua Arboretum and Days Park. Waiwhakariki Park provides a mix of all-weather tracks as well as mown tracks. It is a much larger area than Rakiautahi Park, where walkers and dog owners can be in the same area but not come in contact with one another. Long term, the park's purpose is to be a predator-proof free environment, a haven for flora and fauna, which in my view is an admirable goal. In the short term, I feel it could be made more use of. The use of the park could mirror the Arboretum. All dogs exercise on leashes only, all feces to be removed by owners. The only work council would need to do was perhaps the inclusion of an extra rubbish bin. Council would be surprised by the number of cats that enter the park daily in all directions. Cats are the predators that should be kept out of the park.
Thank you very much for your submission. Colleagues, do we have any questions of Max?
Okay.
Well, it's very clear. Thank you very much. Thanks for participating and coming along. It is really appreciated. Okay, moving along to Lindsay Wilson. Welcome.
Morning, everybody.
And I think you're submission 1 and submission 2.
Yeah, I'm Lindsay Wilson from Fairview Downs. Raymond Park's my park. I've lodged the submission. The main point of my submission is Raymond Park's a sports park. It's always been dogs on lead. 12 months ago, you put up a big sign, orange area, walk your dogs off lead around the park anytime you like. I get your submission now to say that between the hours of 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock, Monday to Friday, keep your dog on a lead. Saturday and Sunday, keep your dog on a lead. Now, that's been going for 12 months. Now I see that it's, the hours are heavily restricted. Now, where did that come from? Who's consulted? I guarantee it's the sports clubs that have been consulted. How many hours do you want, guys? They don't turn up Monday, Wednesday and Friday. There's no sports clubs there. There's no sports clubs there on a Sunday. So I got a bit excited about the fact that I'm sure the sports clubs have been consulted about their hours for us dogs, and now we've been consulted at the end of the day. So my submission is please leave it the way it is. I've got a photograph of the sign. If you guys are not aware of it, you may be aware of the sign there. But at the moment, there's a gang of us, usually old fellas that meet about 3, 4 o'clock. We go past 4 o'clock, and it's quite a social event. And a lot of these guys in 50, 60, most of them work. And you think between 4 and 10 in the evening, that's prime time. And if there's anybody, most of the guys, there's us, some women, most of us stay away from the park, if this game's on, and we do it. I know there's people that don't. So I've got a feeling someone's potted us, on a Saturday and Sunday and said, hang on a minute, we don't want those dogs around. And I feel like the dog people are pushed down a bit because we spend about $1 million in registration fees. But the 50 years I've owned a dog, we've got one fenced dog park over Minogue Park. That's all we've got. Yet the football clubs, it costs them $50,000 to use all the parks in Hamilton. They get Raymond Park mowed once a week. If there's any clumps of grass around, they ring the council up and get it mowed twice, just to get rid of the clumps of grass. We walk right around the edge. We get our grass area mowed probably once a month, every 6 weeks. So I just feel us dog guys get pushed down and we get pushed to the back because I know the dog control centre's way out to Rapa and it's disconnected from the rest of the council. And the culture out there might be different from what the culture is in here. So I just think us dog owners, we spend $1 million and we pay for policing. We pay for dog control officers, trucks, catch dogs. I know the dogs can be a problem, but it's only the minority. So I'm just asking you to sort of think about, when you think about dogs, publicly they think about dogs pooing, biting people and barking. You know, principally that's what people think about when they think about dogs. So I'm asking for a culture shift. It's wonderful you added parks. This man was saying include extra parks. You look at Featherstone Park. Featherstone Park's a beautiful park. Do you know where it is? It's hidden down the back of River Road. It's been there for ages. You can't get into it. There's a little narrow street. I walked there for ages and then suddenly a sign appeared, dogs on lead. But Featherstone Park does not appear on the Hamilton City Council website. I believe it's been hidden for the gated community with the multi-millionaires that live there and Linda Jones. So that's a classic dog park. It's fenced all around. It's got a river boundary and it'll be a perfect place for dogs to walk and run free. I'm basically I like my dog to run free. So I'm just asking you to maybe have an attitude switch about dogs. I know they cause problems, but what else? You know, there's rubbish in the park. Us dog owners pick up the rubbish with our dog bags, you know, because we've got dog poo, and we keep Raymond Park pretty clean. But that's just my main point. What else did I have there? Featherstone Park, I spoke about that. Yeah, we got 13,000 dogs, so it's about 12,000 dog owners. I don't know whether have you got the dog control people here? They would know those figures. Are the dog control people here? Oh, cool. Okay, so we're talking to the right audience. Thank you. And I say we need a fair slice of the pie, us dog owners. That fenced area over in Minogue Park, I thought it was a joke. I use it every time I go over there. It's fantastic. It's the best thing you ever did for dog owners. Give us another half dozen. Because I know you couldn't put one up around Hamilton Lake because the NIMBYs wouldn't let you put it up there. It's just, I know you've got to face NIMBYs all the time. But hey, we're the residents of Fairview Downs. Maybe we're a bit NIMBY too. But we're quite happy with that strip right round the edge, if you look at your map. We're quite happy because that's where we walk. We're not going to walk through the middle. We want to walk around through the trees. That's about all I can say. Yeah. Questions?
Thank you for your submission. Colleagues, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lindsay, for being a passionate dog owner. They are God's little angels, aren't they?
Of course.
Lindsay, just in terms of addressing the perception, are you asking us to address it in terms of our council's policy and how we look at things, or public, or help us with the messaging with public, or is it a bit of both?
I think, I think the public and council have got a little bit of a negative attitude towards dogs. You know, the perception is they chew up other little dogs. You know, I think there's been one in Pirate Stadium, a really bad attack.
Yeah.
So bad press. Yeah. And I know we've seen it in Raymond Park, another dog got chewed up by another bigger dog. But it's just, you know, we're a significant portion of the community. You know, library people get plenty of libraries. Yeah. And bloody hell, football, you spend millions on, you spend $600,000 on Wanderers. Maris Park's getting about a couple of $1 million spent on them.
Okay, yeah.
And what do poor old doggy owners get, you know?
Yeah.
We get a fence.
Okay.
Well, the guy that rides a motorbike around Minogue Park, because I've seen him up there, there's 2 motorbikes doing it, and I've chased them off there.
Yeah.
They've got a $50,000, $60,000 fence now.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. All right, thank you for coming along. Appreciate it. Gerard Rennie. Welcome, Gerard.
I fear the previous submitter might cast me as a member of the NIMBY team. I'm a proud member of that team. I'm a Hamiltonian. I was born in Hamilton East many years ago when Hamilton's population was at least 40,000. In my childhood, Hamilton didn't extend much beyond Dio or Days Park. The area is now known as Day Park. In fact, I'm fairly sure it was Waikato County Council back in the day. I've lived in Hamilton for all but 9 years of my life. I moved away at 17, so about 63 years in Hamilton. with the last almost 30 years within a 5 or so minute walk of Days Park. On the council website, there's a comment from 2 October prefacing the statement of proposal on the dog control policy, stating the dog population in Hamilton has grown from 12,200 in 2015 to 13,800 in 2024 this year. That's a 13% increase. The Infometrics website tells us that the population, that's the human population of Hamilton, in 2015 was 156,800 and in 2024 192,000. That's an increase of 22% in human inhabitants. So 13% against 22%, 1,600 dogs increase, 35,200 people. The proposals for a significant increase in the number of green space areas for dog exercise, including a sizable increase in off-leash areas. Someone's going to tell me I've got my maths wrong, but I counted 28 full-time off-leash areas proposed in the revised bylaw schedules. That's an aggregate. And remember that the policy states there are to be priority areas. These are to be priority areas for dogs and their owners. I said in my brief written submission that I partially support this aspect of the council proposal, but it's conditional. In almost 30 years, I've walked in Days Park many, many times. Abutting the river as it does, I count it as a jewel in the crown of Hamilton's green spaces. It's central now, of course. For many years it has been so, no longer in Waikato County. My handout is a photo, which you may have, of the plaque in the pathway inside Days Park, and the wording's self-explanatory. Mr. Day made over the land to the city, wishing it to be, and I quote, dedicated for the delight and recreation of the people of Hamilton. You need only go to the City Council's website, type in Days Park, click the link to Google Reviews, and you'll see the laudatory comments from many dog owners. When I looked 2 days ago, the first says, one of the best dog parks we've been to. I wonder if that dog owner intends to review the almost 30 other full-time off-leash areas to be in the city. I doubt it. I wouldn't. I'd stick with Days Park. Days Park is effectively and almost exclusively a dog park. So, with the increase in exercise areas promoted in the new proposal, my partial support for it is on the basis that a sensible balance be brought back to the use of, in particular, Days Park, so that the interests of all Hamilton residents, not just dog owners, are dealt with fairly. That might mean some hours during a week when the park is not a dog park. It might be on a trial basis, and it might begin to align with those words you've seen on the inscription on the plaque honouring Mr. Day. Associated with that request is a consequential one that the bylaws, and I won't go into detail, but clause 5.3 contemplates a clarification after further public consultation, amending the designated areas set out in the new proposal. I'd like that to be expanded or clarified so that, in fact, not only the designated areas could be adjusted after further public consultation, but the conditions attaching to that area. While in Days Park over the years, I've witnessed many breaches, of course, of the bylaws, but equally there are large numbers of responsible dog owners who manage well-behaved dogs. There's an argument which goes along the line, surely there can always be coexistence in the park between those with and those without dogs, but that ignores reality. You would be at risk taking an elderly or frail aunt or uncle there on certain days when the dogs are at play, and you certainly wouldn't head into seeing an NZO concert at the Regional Theatre, taking an evening saunter before you do so, wearing your little black dress or your tux. If it's raining or it's winter, my advice is always wear those brown track pants that you've had for 5 years to hide the paw marks. Finally, in my written submission, I talked about adjusting the definition of public place in the new promoted bylaws. I'll withdraw that submission on rereading the bylaws many times. I won't press that any further. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your detailed submission. It's appreciated. We've run out of time for questions, but thank you for coming along. It's always good to hear directly from you. Thank you. Roger, is Roger here? Oh, hi, hi, Roger. How are you?
Hi, good
Hi.
morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
hard of hearing, so yeah.
So, Roger, you've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
We're in your hands.
Hi, my name is Roger. My service dog, Harper, is sitting down at the back down in here. I would like to give you some information and that sort of stuff there. I'm also a spokesperson for Civil Defence Emergency Management for assistance dogs right throughout New Zealand, so I cover the whole of New Zealand. Disability affects over 1.1 million people of 20% of Tokoroa New Zealand population. These disability people, aids, like especially with the assistance dogs. So under the Dog Control Act, under Schedule 5, there is 8 organisations with certified disability assist dogs in New Zealand. So under Section 75, that states that we can go anywhere in New Zealand and in public places. We're also covered under the Human Rights Act and under Section 21 of demonstrations. So when the dog control was first drawn up, it was there for to protect guide dogs when they were out and about. Clearly, this is getting more and more put behind. We need to have this a bit more looked at. All disability assist dogs have a civil defence tags. This is to identify just in case of an emergency. Just recently, I've been told to get out of Burger King in Hillcrest on the 18th of the 11th, 24, by the manager. Then they got a staff member also told me to get out and put it on paper. This is totally discriminated, and the complaint went to council and further. Like myself, has been attacked, rushed, stones thrown at us, been threatened with my service dogs, and been refused in shops. The fake service dogs are quite high in New Zealand. People with these fantasies think they can try and go into places like registered service dogs. So this comes under Section 40 and 41 of the Dog Control Act. It's misleading. The DIA's we've had quite a few complaints from councils saying it's not their responsibility, but the DIA has clearly stated it is council's jurisdiction and responsibility to enforce the law and to act on as well to protect all service dogs within New Zealand. So we've also got the specification agencies like the police, down to conservations and fisheries and search and rescue dogs and that sort of stuff there. You can see in the photos and that about disability dogs are being attacked. In the CBD, one guide dog in training had his ear bitten by a member of the public in Taupo. The other one was the assistance dogs, was lucky to be alive when it was attacked in the chest in 2018. With myself being rushed at, attacked, and also at my own home, this is totally unacceptable. It's quite high in New Zealand. Did you know in 2023, the first service dogs has been removed off public transports and also been given a trespass notice? This has now been removed. Within New Zealand, so many people with been scared to go and report it to council or businesses. For example, number one, you report it, we can go back to your organisation and your dog will be taken off you. The council won't believe you, nor will the business. Number 2, some of us gets threatened, abused, and if we make complaints, X, Y, Z. Number 3, we know where you live, we're going to come get you. 4, people make dogging, barking sounds or going around and following us around town. 5, the community don't want you. This is not okay from anybody. So the dog control, when it was first drawn up, it was to protect service dogs in the CBD, public transports, taxis, boats, and it's been put at risk. So we advised council to help us out. The high cost of training the service dogs from 30,000 to 170. A penalty for fake service dogs, as you can see in there. Here is a diagram I've sent you in here. You can start adding a bit more numbers to it. But the highest one is, in some councils in New Zealand, has also refused service dogs in their buildings. That is a shame to see. Public transport's 161. It's been totally refused. So assaults on service dogs is 120. It's been reported, and that's what I know of. And attacks on service dogs is 45. It's been reported to council. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your insights and experience. I'm sorry to hear that some of these things have occurred. We've all heard, and thank you for your written submission. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Kelsey Harper. Hi, Kelsey. Now, Kelsey, you've got 10 minutes because you're from Harper Hounds.
I am. Well, that's okay. I'm not prepared for 10 minutes. I was only prepared for 5, but that's okay. Oh, absolutely. Okay. Well,
In your hands, you might get
Okay.
lots of questions.
good morning, everybody. My name is Kelsey from Harper's Hounds. I am a professional dog walker, and I have been so for the last 4 years. I'm also a dog trainer. So the reason I'm here today is obviously going through your dog control reviews. I believe that the council is taking a backward step with proposing more off-leash areas. So the reason for that is I see on a professional basis the amounts of reactivity cases that have happened because dogs have been rushed, attacked, bitten, mauled at dog parks. A lot of them go unreported because people simply aren't educated enough about how to report a dog attack. A lot of people didn't get the other person's details of the dog. People run off without giving their details, and so the people feel helpless and just don't report it. A lot of the time, when they do report it to animal control, there's nothing they can do because unfortunately they don't have details of the dog. So being in the industry, I feel like I hear about it a lot more than the general public do. So especially when it's proposed to, and I think I counted an extra 10 dog parks, off-leash areas, and the majority of them were around children's playgrounds. So my main issue was there is a severe lack of control in Hamilton. So a lot of dogs, I know that in proportion to the amount of dogs we have, so I think 13,000, however, I don't know the exact figures, but the reporting, I feel like not every attack gets reported, but potentially as a dog trainer, I see a lot more of it because people usually come to us after their dog has been attacked or rushed because they are experiencing issues with their dogs. So we see it on a daily basis. We also hear about it on a daily basis. I know myself as a dog walker, I'm an on-lead dog walker only. I don't do off-lead. I walk residentially. I get rushed. My dogs have been attacked. I've been bitten in the streets by people's dogs. You can't walk past a dog park without potentially having an issue. You literally can't walk down the streets anymore without having to worry about your safety and the safety of your own dogs. So I feel like increasing the amount of dog parks, this problem is only potentially going to get so much worse. One of the dog parks in particular was on the corner of Moonlight Drive and Borman Road. I used to live on Manahi Drive. I used to walk my own personal dogs down there. It's right next to a children's playground. I feel like the proposal to introduce an off-leash area next to a children's playground is just not a great idea. We already have an issue with dogs running up to other dogs uncontrolled. People don't have recall, people don't have control of their dogs. Adding the fact of young children playing, doing as they do, screaming out loud, running, chasing, those are all triggers for dogs. Dogs will run after the kids, and then what happens when children start getting bitten? As the gentleman before, I think he's left, Lindsay said, there was an attack at Pirate Park reported on the 2nd of December. Again, animal control do a fantastic job, but they're limited by what they can do. If they don't have the person's details, the person gets away with it. I think rather than introducing more dog parks, more money, more education needs to go to animal control to increase patrols, to increase the number of staff that do these patrols, because at the moment, there's not enough. They're very limited by what they can do. Another issue I have with, and this is coming from clients and also my own personal experiences, a lot of people want to report these things and you simply can't get through. Since the change like when you call animal control, you now go through the Hamilton main line, you get the council reception, and a lot of the time, no one answers the phone. This is just from my personal experience and also from talking to clients as well. Phone rings. In the end, you have to give up because no one's answering the phone. When you do get through, there's a lengthy delay between the council taking the report and then animal control actually receiving it. So if there's a dangerous dog in the streets, it's long gone by the time animal control can get there. And that is actually something I've personally experienced doing day-to-day walking with my clients' dogs. So yes, I really wanted to just clarify there is a real lack of education in Hamilton with dogs. A lot of owners don't put any effort into training, don't put any effort into having any sort of semblance of control over their dogs. So rather than increasing the amount of dog parks, I really think the push needs to be towards education. If you really insist on more dog parks, they have to be fenced. Fenced so the dogs can't rush at other dogs walking past down the street. Fenced so they can't rush at children right next to playgrounds. Because the issue with dog parks is you're teaching dogs that it's a free-for-all. They see another dog, they can run up to it. They don't differentiate between if a dog is on lead or off lead. So if they're walking down the street...
Thanks, Kelsey.
Is that it? Is that my 10 minutes?
Time. That 10 minutes
okay, sorry, it's easy to keep talking.
You went very quickly for your 10 minutes,
yes,
and I
did.
do note that you've got a couple of questions. So
okay.
Oh, have we reset? Yeah. So it's set for 5. So
Time for questions.
I stand
Time
corrected.
for questions. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just really, so I am, I'm really passionate about dog safety. I care greatly about the dogs in Hamilton. I see a lot of dogs that have been unfortunately attacked, bitten. I've seen all sorts of horrible, terrible things. I've seen clients that have been traumatised by going through that with their dogs. And I feel like increasing the amount of dog parks is just going to increase those problems like tremendously. And the effect of reactivity on dogs is just terrible. I understand dogs need off-lead areas to roam about, so that's why I'm like, if you must insist on it, they have to be fenced. That's the only safe way to do it. And then if people choose to use them, then it's enter at your own risk. There's a clear defined boundary of the fence, and you will at least be protecting members of the public that choose to not go in there. So if kids are in the playgrounds, they're safe. If dogs are choosing to just walk down the streets because they can't go to a dog park because they might have health reasons or reactivity reasons, they're safe too. So yeah, that was all I really wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got 2 questions. Thanks, Kelsey. Yes. You're a trainer.
I am.
So you would understand, obviously, that it's under the Dog Control Act, it's the human's responsibility
100%.
to keep their dog under control,
yes.
whether they're on leash or off leash. You made a comment at the start that sort of sounded like you were saying Hamilton has... I can't remember your exact words. Hamilton has a problem. It sounded like you were saying Hamilton could be worse than other cities. Is that true? And why do you know we have a significant problem?
Just because I hear about it all the time. So clients come to us with their stories. And I don't know if Hamilton's the worst city in the world. I know it's bad everywhere, right? I mean, you just have to look at the news to know that there's a massive dog control problem in New Zealand and in fact all over the world really. And it just comes down to, you're right, it is the owners just being irresponsible with their dogs. And it really just comes down to the animal, yes, the Dog Control Act says your dog must be in control at all times, but when you really look into it, it doesn't actually specify what control means. So a lot of people just think a leash or and I'll call my dog back. But unfortunately, a lot of the time from what I've seen, people just don't have any control over their dogs. They can't recall them. They run after cats. They run after dogs. They run after people. So that's where the real issue is.
Thanks. And last question, Kelsey. I don't. It's not allowed for under the Act, but would you lobby and advocate and support for training to be part
100%.
of, compulsory part of
100%.
having a dog?
Yeah, compulsory
fees.
training for dog
Yeah.
owners. Like, it was in my submission, like,
Yeah.
even if you try to, like, supplement it, say, like, look, if you enter this puppy school or this dog obedience class, you get some sort of discount. Will people do it? Probably not. However, some people would. And even if we decrease it by a small amount, it's still helping in the long run.
Thank you.
No worries.
Councillor Huata.
Kia ora, Kelsey. I can feel that passion coming through
thank
there. Dogs are good in your hands. My questions are, firstly, how many dogs do you walk at one time?
My maximum is 7.
Is there, by law, a dog-to-walker ratio?
No, we're currently trying to advocate for that as well, but we missed the boat with this bylaw review.
Okay, because if I think about early childhood education, is that if you go out in public with kids, it's 1 to 2.
Right.
So
yeah.
you're
No, I
in a
absolutely
difficult
agree.
position,
I absolutely
right?
agree. There's a massive problem with dog walkers in Hamilton as well, but unfortunately that's a chat for a different day. But
So would you accept that you're taking a risk by walking 7 dogs at one time?
100%.
Okay.
So, but I guess you could say I put a lot of time and effort into my dogs, so it benefits me because I'm also a trainer. So all of my dogs are one-on-one for months before they go with the other dogs. So all of them have to be really well socialised, really well trained. They have to listen to me at all times. My biggest pack is 7. My smallest pack is 3 because that's all I feel comfortable with those types of dogs.
So do you train with them at the same time so they get to know each other? and their
100%,
dynamics?
yes. So it's all dog dependent. If the dog is real social, real friendly, that's my biggest pack of 7. They're all social, really friendly dogs. Some of my dogs, I specialise in reactive dogs. That pack's 3. That's all I am comfortable in handling myself. So that's, yeah. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much.
thank you
Thanks
very
for your
much.
passion, and we've got your written submission. Thank you. Now, as fate would have it, we have an empty slot, but let me see if, is Tony, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
It's probably good that I do follow on from Kelsey too, because we have a similar background. So my name is Tony Barrett, and I'm a professional dog trainer. I've been running group classes for puppies and teen dogs in Hamilton for the last 3 years. And I've been a professional trainer and pack walker for the last 1.5 years. So I want to start by saying I recognise the benefits of the off-leash spaces, but that there needs to be some conditions that come with it. And I say that from my perspective as a trainer, seeing, similar to Kelsey, many reactive dogs. And we're talking about a cause here which is very simple. It can be a timid dog or insecure dog that gets rushed by another dog, where an irresponsible owner has no recall, lets their dog rush up to the dog, and there's a canine dispute, the misunderstanding of body language and signals, and the dog that gets rushed learns that the easiest way to avoid this in future is to be the aggressor. Offence is always the best form of defence, so it starts with a snap, sometimes a lunge, then a bark, and then it can eventuate that this dog, whenever it sees another dog, it goes crazy. So it looks like an aggressive dog, but it's not really. It's just a dog trying to protect itself. And there are many people who I see in my work who have that kind of situation. So I want to say that with increased access should come increased responsibility and accountability for dog owners, and in particular under 2 headings, education and enforcement. First of all, education. I think it's not enough just to provide the extra access. We need to also equip owners to use that access responsibly. Because otherwise my fear would be that the kind of behavioural cases that I see now will just multiply as the dog parks multiply. I'll just see it exponentially increasing. So, whereas I don't want to actually stop increased access, I would like the council to take seriously the need for education. So, dog owners should learn how to read their own dog's body language. Very simple things, just when your dog's stressed, when it's in discomfort, when it might be fearful. They need to learn how to manage their dog's interactions with other dogs. In other words, not being of that fraternity that says, don't worry, he's friendly, and letting their dog roam and, go up to everyone. They need to be able to recall their dog, at least pretty well, if not very reliably. And for those dog owners, I have no problem. I have no problem with them. And I think that there are many dog owners out there that are very motivated. They'll take group classes, they'll spend money. These are the people who really don't need education because they'll seek it out themselves. But then there's a middle group, a group who perhaps are well-meaning but a little clueless. And this is the don't worry, he's friendly crowd. And of those people, they would really benefit by having more education around responsible dog ownership. In particular, how to manage their dog's interactions so they don't unwittingly cause problems for other dog owners. Then there's another group, of course, the extreme ones who probably no amount of education will ever impact. And that brings me to the next section, which is enforcement. I do think that there has been a very large disregard for the current leash laws. While I'm not against having dogs off leash in appropriate areas, it is very difficult now for me to walk my pack of dogs, I walk up to 6, anywhere near any park, even if it's on leash, because I can pretty much guarantee there will be dogs running around off leash, and those owners won't have control, so they'll always run up to my pack. So I just avoid them. But really, that should not be so. Really, why are the bylaws being so disregarded? And I understand that animal control do not have the resources to be at every park all the time. I do understand that. Maybe we need to think about stricter penalties for where people do get caught. I was on the Sunshine Coast in Australia earlier this year at a dog training seminar, and I went to the beach and I noticed the signs that said you could have dogs here, not here, and dogs on a leash here. And they said the fine for ignoring this was 850 Australian dollars, which is pretty eye-watering, I thought. I thought, wow. So even if you thought, wow, I might get away with it, maybe that fine might make you think twice. So just to conclude, I'd just like to recommend that the council invest in public education and enforcement in association with these bylaw changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony, for a very detailed submission.
Thank you.
As fate would have it, staff have done a good job trying to call the next lot of submitters, but there's still a small gap. So we're going to just break for 10 minutes, and then we'll recommence with Deborah at 10:25 on Zoom. So I'll adjourn until then. Sorry, love? It's 5. So
We have Andrew online.
currently we're all good, councillor? Yeah. No problem. Right, so back at 25 past, everyone, maybe a We've got Andrew online, so we can start. Okay, we'll recommence. It's just gone 10:25. We were waiting for Deborah. She's not quite ready. But I think, Dr. Allison, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Now, you're from the RNZ SPCA. You've got 10 minutes, and we are in your hands.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce my colleague, Dr. Christine Sumner, who is also joining us from SPCA this morning. So we will be presenting, both of us, on our area. So Christine will be talking first around animal nuisance, and then I will speak after on dog control. So Christine, I'll hand over to you.
All right, Christine, welcome. We're in your hands.
Kia ora koutou. We're very happy to be here this morning online. So my name is Christine Sumner. I'm a science officer for SPCA. We both, Allison and I, work out of the national office, and we know we don't have much time, so we're going to just take our submissions as read and just briefly speak on some of the highlights we think are important to consider. So first, I'll speak about the animal nuisance bylaw submission. And one of the most important things to SPCA as an organization is to address welfare of companion animals, in particular cats. This is by far the most common animal that our centers have coming into our care. And we are currently in the early to mid stages of what we call kitten season. And this happens to around New Zealand, and this impacts many different organizations and individuals in our communities. And this is where we are seeing this ramped up number of kittens that enter our care. And many of these kittens are stray, particularly in Hamilton. And a number of these kittens are born to companion animals who have not yet dissected their cat. And what happens is they cannot provide care, and we end up providing that care. About 30% of these kittens every year are not in good shape. They're not healthy. So this is a big issue for us. So one of the things we would like Hamilton City Council to consider, and it's what we have spoken to the most in our submission, is to consider requirements for cats, companion cats in Hamilton City, to be desexed and microchipped. This is important for cat welfare. Desexing has a lot of welfare benefits for an individual cat, but critically, desexing companion cats is one of the few things we can do to humanely stem the flow of these kittens from these unplanned litters. It's a lot of folks just haven't gotten their cat desexed yet, or just aren't motivated enough to do it, and it just creates this ongoing problem with what we call cat overpopulation. And that's just these problems we have when there's just too many kittens born to unplanned litters. So we heavily urge Hamilton City Council to reconsider requirements for cats to be desexed and microchipped. And we know we're not the only ones who have submitted on this topic. And we hope that if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Additionally, the same goes for microchipping. Microchipping is an excellent tool to help us reunite lost companion cats or kittens with their owner when they wander off or they become lost. And this just is a quick way for a cat to get scanned, and we know they have an owner. And if that information's up to date, we can get them back home. And I think what I'll do is hand it over to my colleague Allison so she can go through some highlights on the dog bylaw. And then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks, Christine. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. Obviously, SPCA and Council have a shared interest in promoting responsible dog ownership, SPCA under the Animal Welfare Act and Council under the Dog Control Act. And I did want to commend Council on many of the excellent proposed changes, which take a common sense approach to balancing providing opportunities for dogs and their owners for exercise and recreation, and also minimizing conflicts with other users. So just to touch on a couple of the highlights, we do support Council's proposal to set minimum accommodation standards in the bylaw, and we appreciate that the way these have been written is very much in line with the animal welfare regulations, which will enable our inspectors and dog control people to work well together. But we did want to note that dog tethering regulations are expected to be released in future. And we did note that some of the other submissions raised the issue around dog tethering. So there is something in the works, and we would recommend Council look to introduce those when they are released, just for more alignment. We also support Council's proposal to remove the annual renewal requirement for multiple dog permits, and instead require variations only when something changes, like requiring adding a new dog. So we are aware that to get people to comply, it is often best to make it easy where we can and remove any unnecessary friction. So we think this strikes a good balance between having a restriction on the number of dogs and having oversight of that, whilst also not overburdening either Council or responsible dog owners with requirements. And we strongly support Council's proposal to increase the overall off-lead dog park provision by adding new dog parks. It's really important to note that for dogs, on-leash exercise is not equivalent to off-leash exercise. Dogs get both more exercise when off-leash, as dogs naturally walk faster than people, but also are able to have mental stimulation and agency, which are really important parts of meeting our dogs' welfare needs. Obviously, in New Zealand, sentience is officially recognised under our Animal Welfare Act, so it's important that we're considering meeting these needs as well for our dogs. It also potentially reduces the likelihood of nuisance behaviours, because a bored, under-exercised dog is a dog that will find other ways to entertain themselves. And we do appreciate the approach of reaching out to the community to decide where is best to provide these. In our experience, the more dogs are integrated into our societies, the better they can be socialized. And that again goes towards not only improved welfare for the dogs, but also reduced friction and reduced nuisance. And finally, we advocate for Council to follow the lead of some other councils in New Zealand to provide a pathway for review of dogs classified as menacing by behaviour. And this is on the requirement that owners take specific steps to demonstrate that they have become responsible dog owners. So we've seen that introduced in other councils, and what it does is drive people who have received a classification, or the dog's received classification of menacing by behaviour, and provides them a pathway to become a better dog owner rather than just sticking them with a label. And so we've seen it successfully rolled out in other councils, for example, Auckland. With that, I'd like to thank Council for providing us time, and we are now, Christine and I, both open for questions on either bylaw. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alison and Christine, for your presentation. Colleagues, open it up for questions. I'm assuming Louise would have a question regarding cats at least, as this is her area of interest. I'll just let her... Oh, okay. Councillor Maxine.
Yeah, thank you, Alison and Christine. Apologies. And thank you for your fulsome presentation. It was really useful to be able to hear and see your advice in writing. And you may not have heard some of our submitters this morning have talked about off-leash opportunities for dogs and the conflict that has sometimes in children's playground areas, and they've asked for reduced hours and fencing. What's your view around both of those issues?
I would say what we've seen from working with other councils is wherever you're looking to reduce access, you need to provide alternatives. Otherwise, people won't always comply. So we know that council probably, like other councils, doesn't have the capacity to have dog control officers stationed at every playground to enforce the rules. So whenever we're trying to create restrictions, we need to provide an alternative within that neighbourhood, and that generally helps to help people be compliant. Most people want to comply, and most people want to be responsible dog owners. So the easier we can make it, the better. And so that's one way in which friction between those users could be reduced.
In the matter of fencing, is that, yeah, it does. In the matter of fencing, what's your view around that?
Fencing can be really useful, especially if we're looking at, for example, dog exercise areas near roads, or indeed where there may be areas where we don't want them to come into conflict with other issues, whether that's wildlife or whether that's children. So fencing can be a useful tool. Obviously comes with a cost. And yeah, so we have seen other councillors use that effectively.
Thank you.
Councillor Louise.
Thank you. Kia ora, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate this, and I've actually read some of it before because I know some of the information on cats is also on your website, which is really useful. My question was just around, it's good to see how many councils have adopted a bylaw for cats, but I was just curious, I know some MPs are working on a national cat framework, but I fear it's going in the biscuit tin. Do you have a thought on how effective a bylaw is in waiting for a national cat framework, or like is it, if it was to be pulled tomorrow, you know, is it still worth looking at a bylaw?
I think if it's pulled tomorrow, then that's tricky, right? Because I can appreciate, and you're not the only one who's actually, it's a great question, because, you know, you're going down a pathway, and there is a question around investing in that pathway, time and money, and I think also, like, you know, which direction are we going, and then the potential of a looming National Cat Act. I'm pathologically optimistic, so someday I feel like we will have national cat legislation. But in reality, we don't. And I don't know, I'm not sure if anyone knows when that will be a reality and what it will look like, to be honest with you. So I can say this. We know that, and I don't know if Companion Animals New Zealand has attended the hearing, but I did see they did submit in support of cat management bylaws, which doesn't surprise us. But they are the ones who have the New Zealand Companion Animal Registers, where people will that voluntary charity database where you register the microchip. And this is what we advocate for cats. And what other bylaws require cat owners to do. When a council passes a bylaw requiring cat owners to register a microchip for their cat on this database, they see an increase in the number of new registrations. So there is value in a bylaw in encouraging owners. So it isn't all about enforcement from that sharp end of the stick. So there is a lot of value whilst we wait for a National Cat Act, that if you want to get cat owners, I think adopting more responsible cat ownership behavior, normalizing this conversation, I think is working. From our point of view, we've been seeing a shift. And there's a lot of cat owners who don't even know they can do this. And the bylaw process just, like Ali said, many people want to be responsible pet owners. And when you just start having this conversation and setting that expectation, well, this is what it looks like, we see there is behavior change. So we do see a change in microchip registration. So I do think there's value, but I also can appreciate council weighing that decision with the potential for national framework. We don't anticipate, though, that a national framework would undermine your bylaw. In fact, I don't know how it works, to be honest with you, if you pass a bylaw and at some future point there is a National Cat Act. I assume many of these things will still be the same idea, the same behavior, and there will be a way that they can work together.
Cool.
Very full answer.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Anna.
Kia ora, thank you for your submission. Just a quick question around your suggestion of a pathway for dogs that have been classified as menacing. I just wondered what your perspective is. At the moment, our classification requires neutering, and I'm just wondering if you have, whether you would suggest a change in that respect to our policy.
Yeah, so you will be unsurprised to hear that SPCA strongly supports desexing both cats and dogs. We also think that that can be an appropriate thing, especially where dogs, for example, have been seen roaming or in terms of anything. In terms of behaviour, you're unlikely to see desexing to reduce potential aggressive behaviour. You're unlikely to see that change, but it can reduce the risk of, for example, dogs roaming. And also, if dogs do have traits that we don't want passed on, it is a responsible thing to do, to be desexing them, and we'd encourage anyone to desex their dog. So I suppose the short answer is yes, we would love to see desexing. In terms of the pathway, we have seen where after 1 year of holding the classification, for example in Auckland, it is an option for people to apply to have that classification reviewed, and that encourages people to take stock of how they're doing currently as a dog owner and to take steps to become a better dog owner, which is always something both councils and SPCAs like to see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So, doctors, thank you for your time today. We appreciate your information and submission. And so we'll let you get on with your busy days. Colleagues, that brings to an end the submissions. I wonder if staff, do you want to come up so that elected members, if they have questions, we could provide that? So, colleagues, really, this is now our opportunity to express to staff what things you would want to see in what's brought to council. So when I use the word questions, I may have misspoke, but having said that, I mean, if there is some issue you need clarity on, anyway, so there's a motion in front of you to keep in mind, and I will now open it up for any reflections of what you expect to see in the final document.
On process, I wonder if, because I know staff sit there with these processes and write copious notes, if they could give us a high-level summary of what they are going, if they've heard anything.
What's already going?
Yeah, what's already going in the report, and we could fill in the gaps so that we don't. Yeah, might be.
That's a really constructive idea.
Thank you, Chair.
You may have done this before.
Just a few times.
Me today is the need for education, because even though you could say that it is the dog owner's responsibility to educate themselves, it's pretty obvious from some of the behaviours our dog walkers are seeing, and I walk a dog as well, and I see some of these behaviours as well, that we don't have necessarily well-educated dog owners. I don't think Hamilton is any different to any other city in that respect, though. But so I think education and more of an emphasis there would be one of the things I would really push for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's definitely an education piece, and also, I guess, infrastructure on parks is coming up as well. Yeah, there was, I mean, one comment on the, like, in terms of specifically what was asked in the consultation around those times proposed on parks. So I would be interested to hear, I guess, what you guys captured from that, if you did have a specific thought on the timed parks, because that came up, I think, from 2 submitters, but not with a very clear request from the submitter. So keen to hear your interpretation of it.
Just, well, sorry, I'm in a brain. It's the cake in there, it's calling me. It's that birthday cake. Just in terms of education, you will bring in the report, the current costs that we, or the current budget line that we spend on education, and what would be required to increase that, because that could be a fees and charges through the annual sorry, won't be fees and charges, through the annual plan. There was one thing that was through some of the written submissions and from Lindsay today, and we have covered this in the past. I'd like a little bit of commentary in the staff report, please, about, if it's possible, about the bucket of fees and charges that we charge dog owners and the infrastructure that we put in, what we spend on it. Just a high level understanding of that. Thank you, Chair.
Should we just do it? We'll go one by one. So was there anything else you wanted to add? No, that was it. Louise?
Would like some clarity around, Lindsay's comments about how the times change. So just like, did we change the times? Is it confusing for people? Is the signage clear, etc. Wanting to understand what our responsibilities are with service dogs, and whether does council play a role in ensuring they have access to places. Do we keep any information about service dogs if we get a complaint or a request? And understanding what our council facilities rule or policy is around them would be useful. In terms of, I did text this to Helen, but would like to understand, we don't have a cat bylaw. What are the pros and cons? Would it allow us to take a different path in terms of the feral cat desexing fund? If we had a bylaw, would it allow us to do different things so we wouldn't need that fund anymore? And I guess I've griped about this before, but just like signage on the off-leash areas, like a really big sign saying what the fine is. And just education again, absolutely. I understand we don't have an education person in animal control. So if we were to do that, possibly what we would prioritise a person to do, if that makes sense. That's it.
Can I
With the really short list from me.
Sorry, can I add, with the education, I'm assuming that will include education around for the public for service dogs as well. Like it's the whole thing. Yeah, please, thank you. Please and thank you.
A lot that's been covered, and it pretty much signs off what my concerns were. The only other thing that hasn't really been mentioned is monitoring and enforcement, and I'd be really keen to understand how we're, what we're doing, how we're responding. I was super concerned about the phone-ins and the change that we've made and the impact that that has on people and our responsiveness around that. It concerns me to hear that, and if it stops people from phoning in, then that's a problem for us. In terms of the education, I'd be really keen to understand what we do currently. I know when I've had a dog, oh, bless her little heart. No, I worked through that, thank you. That I got information with my dog registration, and that was really helpful. But also being able to have some links up somewhere that people can get dog education information from, linking to other things, maybe even putting a list of people that we know locally as a council who offer services around that, so that it becomes really easy for people to be able to not just get the information but act on it as well. And then when I googled Dog Week, there is an International Dog Week, and it's the last week in September. I wonder if that's something that we could begin to adopt, and then can use all of these really great education tools to promote. Kia ora, that's it from me. And support the service dogs having access everywhere.
Yeah, staff, obviously, if any of this is out of scope, just ignore it. Councillor Anna.
Just interested in the infrastructure, the potential for fencing more of the dog parks that we're proposing, or any aspect of fencing that might help. Just in terms of the menacing classification and the potential for a review path that the SPCA mentioned, I'd like to understand that more. It does come up quite a bit in our dog control hearings around the neutering, and it's a real sensitive topic for people. So I'm just wondering too, in terms of that, whether there's any thing that you could provide in regards to greater discretion for the dog control panel to determine whether a dog needs to be neutered or not, because I think that came up, it's come up a few times. And just looking at our fees, so Auckland has reduced fees for neutered dogs. I don't know if we do we? Or I wasn't sure. So just looking at like ways to incentivise that, if that's indeed something that would help.
Staff, there'll be a couple of things that I've heard that you might be able to answer now that can't be in the bylaw, that are covered under acts of Parliament, which supersedes anything to do with bylaws. So feel free if you'd like to.
Okay, so the Dog Control Act, in terms of desexing of menacing animals, says a council may require.
Oh, may.
May.
Great.
For a dangerous dog, it is must. So Hamilton City Council made the decision in its bylaw many years ago that actually we would require it. Most city councils require desexing. The Auckland review process that they do is not covered by the Act. The Act doesn't specify anything about being able to go back and review a classification. It just says the classification is for the dog's life and that it is across the country. So
staff could put that in the report. So if
we'd have to look at that to see how Auckland are getting around that and whether it complies with the Act before we thought about whether or not we could put something in the bylaw about having a review of a classification. And in terms to the assistance dogs, Roger and I have had some conversations around this. The Act is really flimsy. It sets out in section 75 that assistance dogs can enter premises where dogs normally can't, like so your food safe premises and all this sort of stuff. But there is no penalty attached to it. So there's nothing in the Act that says, and if a business refuses, you can go in there and slap their hand or anything like that. So all we can really do is education. So I've made notes already to myself to talk to our comms person about getting some education out there and on our website about assistance dogs for business owners as well as for owners of assistance dogs as well.
Okay, excellent. So I think you've now heard back from EMs and you can shape your report. Oh, sorry, Tim.
May need to foreshadow a membership issue for later in this meeting, if I may, but if I could just add to it, I think your report is going to be really helpful, and I don't envy you having to write it because I can also see that it's going to be fairly challenging. Just building on what other colleagues have said, if you're able to give a best, maybe it's a best guesstimate, some sort of estimate as to what an education program would cost, I think that would be helpful given the fiscal climate we're in, and therefore options for how it might be funded, whether it could be user pays within the existing fees structure. But I think there's also the really big challenge, and again, it'll just be you using your professional judgment. How do we ensure that an education program would actually be taken up by those who most need to access it? Because I'm sure most dog owners are responsible, some are not. How do you make the irresponsible dog owners undertake something that probably they're going to resist? I don't mean to be sort of cynical about it, but I think we need to be realistic about the problem you face.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Councillor Bidder, do you have anything that you want reflected in the report? No? Excellent. So we've got a motion that we've got to. You all right? Yeah. Okay. So moved and seconded by Louise. Yes, the birthday girl. All I see is cake. Right. Is there any debate? No debate. Look forward to the report. All right. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone.